Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me on another edition of the Bread for Soul Convos with myself, Sir LSG, and a super special one today. I mean, all of them are really special, but for the house heads out there, you guys will love this. I've got on the other end super producer, super remixer, and just a workhorse when it comes to studio, Martin ATJAZZ. Thank you for joining me, bro. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me on this. It's an amazing series, and yeah, I'm pretty good considering the wobbly world that we all live in at the minute. Yeah, and I can't complain about anything, and I won't complain about anything.
Yeah. And I have to ask you though, because I figure you of much of a studio person more than a DJ. Is that the case with regards to especially your business? Is that where you get most of your income from studio work?
Um, it kind of differs sometimes. You know, before I had kids, I was quite happy to just go everywhere and anywhere to DJ, and I know I need to do that, but there's no DJing without the music, if you know what I mean. So I think that since the boys came along, Art's 8 and Rudy's 4, it's changed my vision on what I do anyway, and I see myself as just a professional audio person, really. I do all sorts of things. I'm a master and engineer for about 40 record labels. I try to sit in here as much as I can, which in the last 3 months hasn't been very often at all, because I've been teaching their kids their schoolwork. So DJing, it's a funny question to be asked at the moment, because if you'd have asked me this a year ago, I would have said it's kind of 50-50. But now I'm not so bothered about DJing, but it's necessary. Yes, in the past it has been my main bread, but working in the studio, doing mastering, running the record label, DJing, all of it adds up to how I survive. So yeah, it's a strange one to answer. It's a strange one to answer.
I hear you.
I think you're right in saying that I probably am more suited to being in this room than behind the decks, but at the same time, I'm pretty good at that. So I don't know. I think it's comes with waves. Waves of different things that are going on in the world. If you've got albums out, if you have to tour and travel when you have an album release, it's a bit of an odd one. But if I had to put my hand on my heart and say, where do I think I belong, I would say in here.
I hear you. I love. I mean, you're a dope DJ too, but we never get to see you that regularly in South Africa, But
that's a good thing.
Yeah, but definitely with regards to the music, bro. Yes, you've been feeding us for years now, and I wanna ask just if you could track back just a bit about your earliest memories of music. Who were you listening to before you even thought about becoming a musician yourself?
I mean, it goes right back. I just released an album from the Ra Band, who have been around since the early 70s, and Richard himself has been making and producing music since the late 60s. So when I think about music that I used to listen to for myself, I mean, the earliest memories of music I can even possibly muster up as the old wireless radiogram thing we had in the house, where you lift the wood and top up, and there's a little turntable in there, and you pile your records up and it drops them one by one. And my sister was kind of into Motown, Northern Soul kind of stuff, so we had a little bit of that knocking around. But everybody had the Grease album, right? And these random Tijuana trumpet music from South America albums that you always find in charity shops and junk shops and stuff. But so I think that's kind of my earliest memories of that kind of music. But as I grew up, I got really into listening to things like Whitney Houston, Alexander O'Neill, Luther Vandross. It's that kind of 80s soul sound that swept me, if you know what I mean, and made me interested in the sound that I was interested in, and not just listening to music that was on in the background. That went on to listening to, there was a really famous radio DJ in England called John Peel, rest in peace. He was a very is a real independent music champion. He really pushed independent music, and he used to play things like the Orb, like ambient music and System 7, stuff like this, things that, you know, people that listen to me wouldn't even maybe not have a clue what I'm talking about, but it was ambient music, it was electronic. So maybe the mixture of this wonderful American soul music I was listening to and this, you know, European electronic music I was listening to got scrambled like eggs in my head somewhere, and I generally was really interested in the kind of combination of those two sounds anyway. And then it went on to listening to computer game music, which is another story. We don't know that.
I will get into that, because I mean, like, but before I do, I wanted to just if I could add on, they say something like, if you wanna study your icon, you know, study their icons. So, you know, if people want to really know where does the ATJAZZ sound, you know, come from, they should be at least studying to who you were listening to. But just getting into the video game space, you know, you worked for Core Design for like 13 years, and you worked on the massive Tomb Raider game, you know, creating music for that, writing music for that. And recently this year, Backstreet Records has just released the music from Angel of Darkness, and you and Peter Connelly, you know, were composers for that music. How was the experience and the atmosphere of working at Core Design, specifically working on video games, on Tomb Raider?
Well, it was otherworldly for me to begin with, to be honest, because I was only 17 when I started my job. So I got my full-time job when I was like 17 and a half years old or something. Prior to that, I was in a lot of really geeky European, what we call demo groups. We had computers, Commodore Amigas, Atari STs, and we used to do extraordinary things with them, like make music sound more than the computer was capable of. The artists were incredible pixel artists and programmers that could make things spin and swirl around the screen, and we used to jam this stuff together and put it on discs, and it used to get spread around. Essentially what you're doing is spreading your skills and putting a name to something, so maybe someone might pick that up one day and say, hey, you know, and it happened to me. You know, my friend Dan got a job. He used to be a graphics designer, and he got a job at Core Design programming, and the musician that they were using at the time didn't want to have a full-time position, so I was kind of their second choice. So I moved to Core when I was 17, and it was, you know, moving away from home when you're 17. It was 1991, so it was a long time ago, and it was so exciting that the feelings of being able to have that freedom when you're so young, you know, I wasn't a rebel, I wasn't going out in gangs or anything like that, so I was pretty fixated on what I was doing. I was in like total freedom geek world, you know, and all the people that worked, it was a small team at the time, so all the people that worked there were really nice. Everybody was very welcoming, and you know, the three people would make an entire video game. Me, the graphics guy, and the coder. You might, if you're lucky, have a project manager, you know. So, and then we shifted buildings after about 3 years or something there, and then there was a chap, a really nice guy called Toby Gard, who was a friend of mine. I remember going around his house one night to play Street Fighter, you know, on the SNES, and he said, "Oh, you know, do you want to have a look at these ideas I've got?" And he opened this sketchbook, and it was pictures of this Indiana Jones style character who was a woman with big, you know, hoo-has and guns, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing!" And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, we had our yearly meeting. And it was one of the ideas put forward, and that became Lara Croft, and that became Tomb Raider. So, you know, these teams are small. These ideas are small ideas that just grew into something massive, and we didn't know. You know, I think, you know, the whole team. I was the sound effects engineer on the first game. I didn't write any music for it. That was Nathan McCree. And I remember it was one day we were all just working on this project, and then the next day the magazines and the newspapers were at the door, and something had got leaked, and that was it. That was literally it. Overnight, from just a bunch of young guys and girls making the game to it, they got blown out of, all proportion in one sense. But at the same time, we followed through and got the game done and made another 5. So we made 6 altogether in this here city. So yeah, it was a good time, and I did the music with Peter Connolly for the very last game that we produced at Core Design, which was the Angel of Darkness. Yeah, which we remastered, and we had re-recorded actually by orchestras in London last year. So
nice.
It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I mean, like, people should really check that out. I listened to a few tunes there. Just thinking about it's really as somebody who's only playing games, and the music is kind of like it's there. You're not really focusing on the actual making of the music. You kind of like it's part of the game, so it's easy to overlook the importance of music, even in movies, like the importance of music in a film. It's really, really, really amazing if you really think about the depth that goes into creating music for TV or for moving picture. But I want to ask you about your vast taste as a producer, because we've seen you doing broken beat stuff, you do soulful house stuff, you do deep house, a bit techie stuff, and everything else in between. Has it always been a thing for you to delve into different styles of music?
Absolutely. I'm addicted to sound. I'm a sound designer. That's what I used to be. That's what I think I'll always will be. There are things out of shot here. They're just buttons and sliders and no keys on them. But they make great noises. But it's about that kind of electronic crossover. When I was working at Core Design, I started Mantis in 1995, and yes, it started off as a bit of a hobby to begin with, and then by 1996, I'd already had one release out on my label. At that time, I had an office, so I was going to Core Design for 9:30 in the morning to start work. I was finishing at 5:30. I was walking across town, going to my other office, starting work at 7 and finishing at 3 there. And I did that for about, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years or something. Like, obviously, I wasn't going to the studio every night, but it was very, very regular. So it allowed me at that time I had a job. I was going to work every day, but then I was going to work every night as well. So that's what allowed me to get into making music and putting music out, because I could fund my own hobby is a thing. I had a chat with one of my South African friends the other day about, should I leave my job? And I was saying, don't leave your job. Yeah, but I want a career in music. And I said, you can't leave your job to have a career in music. You have to keep that job and work double hard to have a career in music. You got to have 2 jobs. You got to have your job and you got to have your music job. Otherwise, you will fail on both sides, because you'll end up having to get another job because you'll have no money to eat. So it was a strange conversation, but it kind of made sense to him in the end. But I think what happened was, at that point, I was a hip hop DJ as well. So I was massively into Mo Wax and Dilla and Yellow Productions, the Mighty Bob, all these kind of things. And that was kind of my world: hip hop, electronic music, touching on a bit faster hip hop, and instrumental music as well. I heard Ron Trent and Shed Damier's Morning Factory one day, and that was it.
Damn.
I just went to house music. It was like no turning back. That's it. It's changed my life completely. Obviously, I'm still influenced by all my hip hop and kind of trip hop roots and stuff like that, and funk and jazz and soul and all this kind of stuff mixed up. So I think it's always going to be with me. I'm not the producer that went to college and someone showed me how to use Logic, and then I'm sitting making a song in a style. I make sound, and that's what I enjoy doing. And sometimes it turned into songs, sometimes it turned into instrumentals. You know, it's just, I think it's an organic progression.
Yeah.
That I was able to fulfill a dream, if you know what I mean, because I worked very hard in the early days. So.
No, I get
That's
it.
why this the styles cross over so much, because I'm just into all sorts of stuff.
And I love that so much. And not many people can do it as well as you are doing it. You know, like so it doesn't really matter what you're working on. If you're working on a hip hop or trip hop song, or you're working on a broken beat song, but like, you know, the quality is always there. And I do want to ask you about sounds, but before I do, just to track back to your point regarding work and balancing work and passion. You know, I was telling you just before we started that I've been working for the past 10 years for a TV production company, and at some point I always felt like maybe now it's the time to do only music, you know, because I was starting to get a bit more requests, you know, for gigs and stuff like that. Some gigs I couldn't do because I had work commitment, but I'm actually glad that I stayed, you know, because there's been many moments where I'm not getting requests, I'm not getting booked, I'm not getting any income from the music, but my job is still there. You know, at the end of the month, I'll be paying for my flat, for my car, and so forth. And I think it's such an important thing for people to realize that you don't need to be one thing. You know, like you don't need to be only doing work or only doing music, at least until you know that you can live without working. You can support and survive you can survive and support yourself without necessarily doing a full-time job. Then that's okay. But if you kind of still have unsure, you might get banned. So I would advise for people to really think twice before leaving their jobs. But obviously there's a balance to everything. Whatever really makes you happy, but you need to know the truths, you know. So just talking about sounds, Martin, you are a sound geek. I mean, like, I don't even know how many keyboards you have, how many synthesizers. When we see videos of you that you're posting online, you've got a lot of stuff. And I want to ask you firstly about the topic of digital and analog sounds, and you know, does that, I mean, for you, obviously we know that you like analog, but does it matter, you know, does it really matter?
No, simple answer is no, it doesn't matter at all. You know, there are some things that none of us can afford that do special things, like if you have a really lovely Neve compressor, or you know, API rack or something like that, where you can put your equipment through it and all of a sudden it's breathing a new life. But it all comes down to your ears at the end of the day. You know, if something sounds, I mean, what's wrong with digital? You know, I love digital sound. I think it's brilliant. You know, even like I mentioned before, listening to people like Alexander O'Neill, Luther Vandross, and Whitney Houston, the majority of music that I was into that they made was made on digital synthesizers. You know, it was in the 80s. This is, you know, Yamaha SY77s, Roland D50s, all these synthesizers they were digital synthesizers. They're brilliant. Yeah, there are great analog synthesizers, like, you know, like the Moogs. They are gorgeous. They're beautiful. But there's also amazing digital synthesizers that have their own character and sound that you can't create on this. The other thing about analog is, yeah, it's great having analog synths all the time if you want to make analog sounding music, but do we want it becomes very difficult to mix, and almost one-dimensional, you know. So you have to have a mix. I don't particularly like using plugins, but that's just a choice. That's my choice, because I can't sit in front of my computer like scrolling through. I've got MIDI rolling and I'm scrolling through sounds to find the right sound to fit the MIDI. This is where it gets interesting for me, because I'd rather go, you know, and craft the sound with the keyboard that I'm making, because then I know that the sequence that I'm playing and the sound that I've made is a thing. It's come together as an ensemble. So, you know, I don't think that anyone using digital equipment is any worse off than anybody using analog equipment. I think it's all down to your ears, and believe me, there are some people out there that you wouldn't know. And I've got good ears. I get told I've got bat ears, you know, really good hearing. And I wouldn't know if that person was using an analog synth or a digital synth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What's the end product? You know, I like this stuff because I'm getting old, and I had this stuff when I was 18. You know, because I had a good job. I bought it when I was, you know, when I had money. But now I'm a deep house producer for a living. I don't buy synthesizers anymore. So and not very often anyway.
Yeah. And just talking about sounds, you know, I love the project that you did. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the Less Than 10 project, where you were doing music and with less than 10 sounds. Just tell us about that for people who don't know. What was that project about, and what did you take from it?
So it wasn't so much less than. I wish I could pull these equipment out and show them. But it's basically, you know, back in the day, in my first studio in my basement of my old house, I had an Akai sampler, and I had an Atari ST, and I had one effect unit or something, one strip, and a small mixing desk and a DAT machine to record it onto. I couldn't get much in the way of an array of sounds out of what I had, but what you did do was use what you had in such a better way than we all use things now, because, you know, you work in Logic, or I use Cubase, and you've got a plethora of sound sources. You can just go to town and fill stuff, and it all becomes very superfluous. And while I'm just filling this, the meaning of what you're trying to do gets lost. So back when we were using just a sampler, or even people with just an MPC drum machine or something like that, they had very limited options of where their sounds were coming from. Tiny memory banks with hardly any space for sounds. But the music that came out of that era was incredible. Nearly every song that came out of that era was really characterful. And I was thinking, we don't work hard enough on what we haven't got, you know, on what we haven't got. Let's limit it. So I made a song called Life on Titan, with only 10 what I call running processes. I mean, you know, don't take advantage of the rules. If you do, then, you know, I might hear it. But for that is basically, if I have a kick drum and a hi-hat on separate channels, it's 2 running processes. You know, if you were to bounce that and you have one sound that's a kick and a hi-hat, you can't then chop it up. It's one running process, but it's you've jammed it together. Now, this is not saying that you can then do 16 sounds and jam them together, because that's abusing the rules, right? So it was meant to be, you know, try and find a way of making really interesting, characterful, memorable music with a really limited sound kind of source, and really try very hard to do that. And everybody did it. You know, we had Ocean Day and Fred Everything and Rocco and people like that on that first set of releases. So people got really excited. Oh, I want to try it out. I want to give it a go. I'm ready. I'm up for the challenge, you know. So again, you know, we all get a little bit bored sometimes. You know, you're a producer yourself. You know, you get a bit bored and you want to try something different every now and again. So maybe I should ask you to do a Less Than 10 release for the next one. Cool. But it's an interesting project. I just, at that time, I really wanted to do some other things to kind of shake it up a little bit, because the world of digital music platform can get a little bit samey for me, and I get bored quickly. So just having tunes after tunes after tunes, I do like it when someone comes up with an idea or a project that you think, oh, I like the way they did that, you know. Well, that was a good concept album or something like that. So
yeah. And I mean, like, another interesting project that you had was the Mix 1 and Mix 2 projects. And I mean, if I were you, I would also not give a damn about giving these things titles. I mean, like, you do so many songs, you know, like, you had just say track 1, track 2, track 3. What was the concept regarding that whole project?
I'm really happy with that project. I think that every single song has a really strong character and tells its own story, which is really important for me. People probably don't know, I mean, all the artists, Julian, PC, Gobs, everybody knows my life is really, really busy. And my last really let's say, proper ATJAZZ album came out in 2004, which was 16 years ago. In that time, I haven't had the opportunity to make another album. So I was getting frustrated. Everyone else is making albums. They're coming here to record them, but I'm not doing anything. I'm kind of shrinking as everything else is getting bigger around me. So I thought, well, how can I make an album that is an album but is made over time? So what I did was I started making a song, and I called it Track One, which is, I think, a bit of a gnarly term for music anyway. Myself and Ocean Day had this conversation. Things should be called songs. Tracks only relate to when the format of CD came out.
Yes,
it was
yes.
only made for CD.
Yes.
Track. You click forward the track.
Yes.
So I just thought, we'll call it track, because no one cares anyway. It was a bit, I was being a bit of a rebel making that album, I guess. So I did one song, mastered it, put it out. Next opportunity I had to have in the studio for a few hours, I made another song, finished it, mastered it, put it out. And it was over 10 months or 9 months or something like that. I did it, and then I went back in, and then I adjusted all of this mixes and masters and put it out as a full album. And then I remixed the whole album as well, to have an option on the versions that I made for people that wanted maybe a slightly different style on what I'd done. And it was enjoyable for me, because it was a musical release, after having such a long time not making my own songs properly, not disregarding the stuff that I've done with Julian, obviously, but that's a collaboration where just me on my own making my own music and calling the shots was getting I was getting frustrated waiting to do something. So there's a lot of maybe frustration behind it, because that album's a bit aggressive in parts as well. So
no, I mean, I love the album,
that's
bro.
that's about.
I really do. I really love both the original mix one and the remixes that you did for the album. And I just think it was a genius idea as well, to not, like, nobody really, if it's an instrumental song, sometimes it doesn't really matter what you call it. But anyway, I want to talk about remixing. You do a lot of remixes. Like, you've remixed for every prominent house music label out there, but also you've also remixed for major labels like Warner in France with Saint Germain, whom I've heard he's a super fan of ATJAZZ. But what was that first remix that you got? Remix request that you got that blew your mind?
I had a few actually that were a bit like, why are they asking me? I'm not worthy situation. I got asked to remix Duele. Unfortunately, that wasn't accepted, but at least I got asked. I did the remix. It has circulated somehow. Someone's obviously taken something from my studio. But no, Jack, I'll probably send it to somebody. And then someone took it out of their studio. But yeah, so I've been asked to remix Duele because I'm a huge Duele fan. I got asked to remix the Pink Panther for Henry Mancini, for the 40th anniversary of the Pink Panther, which was pretty intense, to be honest. They're all really, I don't expect anybody to ask me for a remix. I really don't. And when they come along, it's always, oh look, I don't get as many requests as people expect, by the way. So when I do get a remix request, I always take it seriously. But I can't, Saint-Germain asking me to go to London to meet up with him was a bit scary. Let's put it like that. I've been listening to his music since he started releasing music. And I had no idea that he even knew I existed. So when I went to London, 10 coffees later or something, can you help us find somewhere to get it mastered? Can you help us with this? Can you, and also we want you to remix it. It's like, let me just pick myself back up off the floor, you know.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, when you look up to somebody that much and they ask you to do something, it either bounces off you and you just get on with it, or it changes your life. And I think it did a bit of both for me. That I know I'm capable. I'm very capable of doing these jobs, but it's being asked by these people. You just almost don't want to touch their music, because it's like it's meeting that famous person always kind of shatters your dreams. You know, like, oh no, he wasn't very nice, or you know, whatever. But Ludovic Navarre is a really sweet person, and he's very private. So I can still keep him as you know, I'm still a super fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize he even knew I existed, and he said he came to me because every time I remix someone else's work, I make it my own and I give it its own life, rather than just taking their parts and making another version of their song. I always inject something else into it, which I felt was really, I took to heart, and I really appreciated it. You know, to hear that from someone you know, you don't even class as a mentor. You don't even want to know. You don't even need to know or want to meet these people, because you just want to keep them up there on a pedestal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if I go back, you know, Charles asking me to remix his work was a thing as well, because he lived very close by. He was only 10 miles away.
You're talking about Charles Webster?
And Charles Webster. We all, you know, we all love Charles so much, and he kind of took me. Again, Charles is quite a private person, but was doing music that was next level compared to what was coming out around him. And to be invited into his world was a massive thing, and then to be asked to remix, and then to be asked to be, you know, collaborate and start making music with him. We get on very well, and we bounce off each other, and the ideas become really exciting. And you know, we drink beers and wine, and well, you know, we're both into synthesizers, so we're getting the right. So it worked really well. But again, remixing Charles, it's like, what do you do? What am I meant to do with that? You know, I cannot. Unless you want something different, I can't improve it.
Yeah,
you know?
I hear you.
Because it's already great. So what do we do? So you make it your own, or you go home. You know, that's it.
Sure, or you don't do it. I love.
No, you don't do it. You walk off. No, you're okay. Thanks. Run.
My favorite remix that you did is the one you did for the Havana Cultura band, Orisa, with Giles Peterson.
Orisa.
Man, that was I don't know, like still today, like for me, that song, I feel like I don't think people really appreciate the song as much. You know, oh, it hasn't really gotten to people. Like, you know, it's really amazing what you did with the, and when you listen to the original and what it was, and the remix that you did, bro, like it's amazing. Was it Ross who played the bass on it?
Of course.
Super. I think it's crazy, man. He's when I saw him in South Africa, you know, walking through the crowd with a bass, I'm like, this guy is crazy.
Yeah, he can't stand still. He's like a jumping bean, you know. Initially, when we first started coming to SA, it was like he had a cable running from his bass into the mixer, and in the end, we got rid of that and got a wireless system so we could set him free, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember at Spring Fiesta, the stage is quite high. I mean, Ross is quite high anyway, so, but the stage is about 6-7 foot high or something, and he's just jumps off the stage, climbs over a fence, and he's in the crowd playing bass on his knees, you know, and he's holding the bass notes, and people are touching the bass, and I'm like, yeah, that's Ross. He's gone for it again. He's nuts.
I wonder if he had a bit of an issue getting back on stage.
He went round the back. Yeah. Took him a few minutes when he went up the stairs and came back again. Then he jumped down again. It's like his workout, you know.
Yeah.
I think you know, we're the clowns of deep house in South Africa, I think.
And I think when people, well, certainly when I see you online, when you're busy working, I don't at first, it's not easy to think about you as this crazy person, but like meeting you in person, like, and seeing some of the pictures with you and Julian, you guys are just really idiots, and I love that.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. But you and Ross also, he assisted you with the building of your studio, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's his design, it's scientifically airtight. So if I can't get out the door, that's it. I'm gone. I'm a done person. It's airtight, and I don't have any air holes anywhere. So
Yeah. Sorry, just to get back to remixing a bit.
yeah,
How do you decide um which remixes to take on? I mean, like, you're a busy person, and yes, you say you don't get a lot of requests as many as people expect, but I can assume that you still get a decent number of requests. And secondly, I think I've had a conversation with you a couple of years ago where you were telling me about publishing, that even for a remix you still want publishing, because I mean the biggest one of the biggest songs that you did, the remix you did for Moments, and that was huge in South Africa, but you did not get any publishing for that. You just paid for the remix. So how do you decide, firstly, and give us your take with regards to publishing on a remix?
every deal in music anyway, not just remixing, is different and can be crafted to suit the people involved in that deal. So the Moment thing was it was an odd one because I was asked by my friend Ray in Ireland, who was friends with the guys at Headset Recordings in America, to remix this song by Mussaria and Saturno. And, I thought it sounds maybe a bit commercial for me to work on. And I asked Stuart, my designer, I used to share my office with him. I said, "What do you think?" And he said, it's really good. Do it, do it, do it. So I did it. And I remember Ralph sending me a video just after it came out, him DJing in SA. I think it was before he moved over. And he said, "Martin, you've got to check this video out." And everyone was singing and with their hands in the air. It was before I came over, so it must have been around 2010, early 2010, something, maybe mid 2010. So 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Crazy.
And I was like, wow, I've never seen, definitely from a distance, I've never seen people react to my music like that. That's crazy. And of course, it's always weird when it's a remix, because essentially the original music is someone else's. But like I do with the majority of the music I produce as remixes, I only use the vocal. So I make an entirely brand new song to back that up. That song unfortunately got licensed exclusively to a compilation in South Africa, which did very little. It was it just got sold off to some young chap who did a compilation, and it never really did anything. So we were locked out of, because Soul Candy and House Africa were kind of fighting over the license for the territory. So we were locked out of doing something with it. So that's when I spoke to Ken, who owns Headset, and said to him, "Look, let's do a license where I do brand new remixes for free, but I release them on my label, and I'll help you get the correct territory license for this song, because the people in South Africa absolutely adore this record, and it's got such a good meaning to the song. It's easy to sing along to. Everybody really, really enjoyed it." So I was like, "Oh man, it's a real shame we can't do anything." So we worked it out. But yeah, at that point, I wasn't really interested in taking publishing, and I think the deal that we have in place didn't really give me the space to take publishing either. So I stepped away from that. But one thing that I would say for people, and especially what I do on my label, I've got like, how many licenses on my label? I've got 74 people on my label. who own recordings, are licensors, and when, say, for instance, Rocco would maybe remix me, for instance, I would give him 50% publishing of my song because of the amount of music that he's added to it. And I think that that's really important, because then if I remix something of Rocco's, I'll get 50% of the remix that I did for him. We both have then 2 more recordings that we own 50% on in our catalogues, in our personal catalogues that we own for life, you know. And it's really important that you build your catalogue up like this, I think. In the independent world. Now, in the major world, yes, of course, it gets a bit more difficult because there's a hell of a lot more money being thrown around and, 50 people making one song. So it becomes more complicated sharing points and prizes out. But I think it really works for us in this label because people are sharing publishing out. When someone does hard work for them for free, a remix or something, because they need some exposure, it's only fair to say to them, you can have 50% publishing of this song. So yes, off the back of what I said before, when I remix, I generally only use the vocal. So where does that leave the writer of the music? Now, I'm not saying that the writer of the music hasn't had an input in making that original song what it is, or influencing the vocals the way that they sound. But their music is not present anymore.
Yes.
Mine is.
Yes.
So therefore, I am the new writer of the music, yes. And I think that the publishing needs to be put in the right place for that. Because again, publishing is something that it's a legacy thing, and it's an estate thing. All of these. It's very sad that a lot of musicians like Dilla or Frankie Knuckles have passed away. Their families still get paid their publishing income. That estate their music is still generating money for their family, and that's very important. And people should know about that. I think people should know about the music business more anyway. There's a lot of desperate people that just want their tunes out, but it's really important that I've been messed over, I've been screwed over bad before in the music business, and the way I do my business is the way I want to be treated by other people. So it's important that people understand what that means. I'm not, as taking publishing from someone, I'm not just taking a chunk of their stuff. I'm getting writing ownership for something that I have written.
True. And
50% of at least,
And I think that in our scene, like as house music people, it seems like that conversation, we just like kind of keep it aside, because I've remixed for people, but like very few times do we actually discuss publishing, especially in that case, which is similar to me. If I'm remixing somebody's work, I will take the vocal and just reintroduce a new piece of written music, and in addition, I go to an extent of recording new musicians on the new piece, and so that it sounds like me, it sounds like my product. But we hardly discuss the publishing part of it. It's almost like you're just getting paid for the remix. Yes, you're getting paid for the remix. Here's the remix work, but what about the writing for the remix? The composition for the remix, which exists now. But just closing the remix thing, Martin, I want to know. I mean, you've discussed this thing before, but just for the purpose of this show, the difference is, how do you get from Love Soul remixes and the Astro dubs?
So Astro dubs were like leftovers on the plate originally, So the meat and the effort and the writing and the composition and the sound design and everything goes into making the full remix, whether that's an ATJAZZ remix, an ATJAZZ Galaxy Art remixes, where it's something a little bit more astral, a bit more spaced out, or a Love Soul remix where I've thought, this vocal is so beautiful and soully and maybe gospelly or something like that. This deserves a lighter touch and a more jazzy edge to it. Let's get Ross involved. Ross is always involved in, 95% of the time Ross is involved in the Love Soul stuff. But it's really important that that all of the meat goes into these main mixes. Now, what I was a couple of times, you can do a dub, which kind of sounds like the original remix, take a few bits out, start to mess around with the vocals a bit, something a little bit more dance floor, something you don't have to listen to so intently on the dance floor, something you can just get down to. But then I took a little step further because I was just having fun, having fun, setting up soundscapes and just crazy stuff, maybe messing the beats up more. And it just started to sound quite spacey. So that's where the Astro remixes came into it. They were the fun bit after doing all the hard work, afterwards.
Yeah.
So I don't just go in, I can't just go in and go, someone says, oh, we want you to do an Astro remix. I'll have to do a remix first because that's the leftovers you've just asked for,
I hear you.
It's the lungs and the heart and the liver.
For sure. I mean, you do a lot, bro. Like you just said at the beginning, you master for like 40 labels as a mastering engineer, and I mean, you've been mastering for people like Osunlade and Charisma, Charles Webster, I think, to a certain extent. But the question I'm trying to get to is your hectic workload. Like, I don't know how you do it. Like, if you could paint to us like a week of studio for you as ATJAZZ, how does that week look like in terms of the different roles that you have to play?
For the last 8 years, I haven't had a week where I can work. So I've always, in the last 8 years, I've never worked Wednesdays because that's always been put aside for, especially when Art was, before he went to school, for instance, and then we had Rudy, and then Rudy's with me every Wednesday. And from September, that changes. My life changes in September, so I get to work every day of the week again. So my week comprises of around about 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. So 5 hours, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I don't work Wednesdays, and I get all day Fridays because Amanda doesn't work Fridays, so she has the kids in the house. And so, what's that? That's like three 5-hour slots and 1 8-hour slot I have to work in a good week. So in the last 3 months, I've only been working 1 day a week because I've been homeschooling and looking after the kids constantly. So my personal studio time's been cut. So I've been using Fridays, which was my work day, to do my mastering work. But I also, strangely, before I refitted the studio, explained to my clients that there's going to be some downtime from mastering. So I run the record label, obviously, as well. I do everything, all the administration, and I have a lot of other people I help. Like I help Julian with his label and with his releases, and then I've got other friends with labels. The Backrest Records with the Tomb Raiders stuff, that's my friend Peter's record label, so I distribute that. I've been helping him and uploading all the releases for him. So it's full on. Let's just put it like that. It's like if on a good week from 10 till 3 in the afternoon, by 3 o'clock, I'm so highly strung because the day's just been like lightning fast that I don't know. It's really hard to come down off that. It's difficult. It's really hard, and because I'm so tired, I don't do the working nights thing. I do have the odd night in the studio, of course I do, but it's very rare, once a month, where I'm in here. It's very difficult. Yeah, I may have 40 clients in mastering, but it only gets really busy twice a year, around March time and around October time, when everyone's preparing to get their big releases out. It gets a bit nuts. But not everybody's got constant releases. It's not like Defected Records where they've got releases all the time. So it's quite sporadic with all my clients.
But I mean, you still do a lot of releases on your label. It's the catalog is huge, even though it's not like every week kind of release like Stay True. I don't know how Alan does it, but you still do a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, when was it? In May, there was a release every week because, again, it all comes with time. There's no real there's no method to this. There can't be a method to this because there's too many people in their emotions and their needs on a daily basis and they change. So when lockdown happened, loads of people that had a job, a day job, that had written music, and I was like, all right, it's in the schedule. We've got like 30 releases, so you're going to have to wait a little while. It's going to be a few months before we can get to yours. All of a sudden, people are like, can we get the record out? And I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Let me have a look at the schedule again, because everyone else is asking me the same question, you know. So there's no real, I don't know, there's no real answer to it. There's some days are pretty hectic. Some days, because I've been so hectic that day, are a little bit less hectic, and I can get in the studio to maybe do half a remix or something. But I don't have any downtime. I don't have any time to explore or have fun with music, that's for sure. You know, I had some people coming to me saying, oh, you know, we're doing a compilation, have you got any tunes lying around? Like, not since I was like 18. You know, I don't have tunes lying around. I don't have things lying around. When I go in the studio, unfortunately for me, I have to just do the job, which is really stressful and awful, because what if it doesn't work? I don't have any more time to fix it. So there's a lot of starting, deleting, cutting. That's rubbish. Get rid of that, crappy, in the bin. All right, that's all right. Oh, we got it right. How long? I've got 2 hours left. How much can I get done in 2 hours?
Man.
So yeah, it's pretty intense. But you know, it's, you only have one life, don't you? So why the hell not do it all? You know?
True. And I mean, like,
luckily everybody I work with is decent, you know. So
yeah. And you've
if
managed to. Sorry.
If I had people stressing me out all the time, it would be awful. But I haven't. So
yeah, that helps, and at least the music is nice too, because I can't imagine having to deliver and you're working with something that you don't enjoy, you know. But I wanted to ask you with regards to, because you are so busy and you do so much, and it's work, you know. It's yes, it's fun, it's music, we all love music, but it's like you've explained, it's work. Have you ever doubted your own decisions with regards to you being in the music industry? You know, like, especially our industry has been said to be, you know, not paying that well, and you've got a family, and you know, you provide for your family through the work that you do with music. But have you ever had doubts with regards to, you know, do you really want to do this?
All the time, up until about 2 years ago, I think. I always wanted to do it. You know, Julian, everybody knows Julian Gomes, our good friend, and Ross. They're very close friends of mine, and they tell me, you know, what's what, and I respect them both for that. And they sat me down one day, because they've been around me for days on end here at my property, watching what I have to do. And Julian's like, brah, how'd you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. What did you say? You know, who's that calling? No, I'll speak to him later. You know, it's intense. And they sat me down and said, you have to stop doing this, because you're going to go mad. You're going to make yourself ill. And I sent an email out. This was about three years ago. So all of the behind the scenes stuff's coming out now, isn't it? You've weaseled it out of me. I was hoping you were going to do this. Because I think people need to know it's not as shiny as people expect, you know. I'm not sitting here with a Porsche outside my house. I can't even drive. I don't have a license. So they said to me, chill out, you need to stop it. So I sent an email to all of the artists on my record label, which is really sad, saying, if I haven't mastered or scheduled your releases, I'm afraid I won't be able to release them. So please take them elsewhere. Because it just got so much that it was too intense. You have to remember that twice a year I was spending around 5 weeks doing the royalties for everybody manually, and paying everybody manually. So it's that was just a real hefty stress in itself. So about 2 years ago, I invested in a royalty system through another company, and we imported all of my catalog and all of my data, and it changed my life And I've told this story to a few people and said, you know, if you're gonna forward your label and your business, which will grow because once you get your teeth into it and it starts to create some income, you're not going to want to stop. You want to keep going, and at that point you'll have 10 or 15 people that rely on you and you have to report to and pay them, and they're going to want to know the numbers. You're going to start getting stressed. Luckily, I've been doing this for 25 years. Started my own label in 1995 and right through to now, with a cut in the middle kind of thing. I've been through it all, so I kind of know how it works, and don't want to let myself down and don't want to let anybody else down. So the doubts have always been there, you know, always been there. And there was a point around 2009 where literally my entire world collapsed, where my business partners screwed my company over heavily. Mantis Recordings was destroyed by somebody, and I had to pick the pieces up from this and then open that jazz record company the year after and try to move that forward. But it was slow going, man. It's a long game. And even through all of that, I still had this drive and burn in my tummy to just keep going. You know, I've got this in me. I need to do this, but it's a long game. And yeah, like I say, it got a bit stressy a couple of years ago because of so many releases and so many people wanting to release on the label, and I couldn't accommodate. And I don't want to let people down, so you just have to, you know, cut your losses sometimes and say, hey, what's happened is what's out there is out there. That's great. What's not out there is not out there. That's also great because you have that. It's your property. You can go and do that with. You can go and do what you need to do with that. No holds on me. I'm not going to hold you to ransom for your music. So, but then, like I say, once I put the royalty system in place, I actually got, rather than spending 10 weeks a year doing royalty statements, I spend 2 hours.
Nice.
And 10 weeks a year is a lot of time for me, as we've just discussed my time.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how much that alleviated the pressure. Now it's just all systems go, and my infrastructure of my record label is tight as a nut, and I can, you know, release people's music, account to them, pay them, and show them what it feels like to be looked after by a label that has got their best interests at heart. Because the doubts come from not being able to deliver to the people that you're licensing the music from. And that's gone now. It's gone. The only doubts we have now is COVID-19, and the lockdown is preventing people from going to work and going to school, so that we've got, you know, limited time to do all of this. So it's just a scramble to the front getting the catalogue released, you know. So, yeah. But yes, there's always doubts. There's always doubts, but not serious ones anymore.
Yeah.
The doubts are, when am I going to get in the studio next?
Sure. Sure. And what's the system that you used for royalties, if people want to know?
Well, there was a couple of options. I was going to go with Details in Germany, because that's a really good system and a lot of people use that. BBE use it. My friends at BBE use it. And Sonar Collective use it. People like that. And I was like, you know, this is... But in the end, I went for Royalty Works because I find it a little bit more suited to what I need. But it's quite expensive. Month was not really expensive for the amount of, you know, it cost me £1,500 a year, essentially, to have someone, you know, combine my data and distribute my royalty statements. Still have to pay people, but that's easy. I don't mind giving people money. It's just working the numbers out is it's a brain basher. So again, you know, I'm more than capable of doing it, but my time is better spent running my record label, looking after my artists, and making music. I think, you know.
And teaching kids.
And teaching my kids at the minute, which the art is reluctant. On Thursdays and Fridays, he does not like it. Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays seems to be okay, but Thursdays and Fridays, it's like trying to teach a Tasmanian devil.
Yeah, and you've released on your label a lot of artists, you know, Julian obviously, but you've also released C9, Jazzwell, Bruce Loco, and some more. Who are some of the South African artists you like to listen to?
To listen to.
Yeah.
You know, I love listening to your music because it's not always just straight dance floor music. It's nice. It's got songs behind it. It's got music behind it. So that's the kind of music I listen to, as a fan, if you know what I mean, as a fan of music. I'm very into the sound of Jazzwell, very much so. I think one of my favorite artists out of South Africa is Mash, FKA Mash.
Yeah.
I think he's got the X factor, absolutely. I think he's incredibly talented, and I know that all the young South African guys and girls that are making music also think the same, because the demos I get sent at the minute all sound quite like Mash, which is it's a super compliment to him, super compliment to him.
And you once said something about Mesh, a post. I don't know if it was a picture of something or something like that. You were like, "This is the future," and I'm so glad that you brought it up.
No, he's incredible. I get goosebumps when I listen to Mash's music. I listen to it and think, not only does he have his own style. When I speak to him on the telephone, he's a friend. So when I speak to him on the telephone, he's very measured in the way he does his music, in the way he puts himself forward, in the way that he deals with people. He's really kind. He's really affectionate person. He's really nice, much like Julian in that way. They're both quite similar personalities, to be honest. So I love the music that Gobs makes. The Gobs with Solo as well. Solo's voice is absolutely beautiful, and also they dabble with the hip hop in the background, with doing live events and stuff like that as well, which I love. So I've got a nice family in South Africa of artists, and a lot of them are my friends as well. So it's nice to see them doing stuff. And Gobs has got his own label now, so he's releasing stuff on his own. Julian's now got World Without End, which is wicked. Mash has also, got his own outlet as well. So it's just really nice to see the quality, because anybody can pick up Fruity Loops or Ableton and make tunes, but making music is different. Making something that connects the dots and is appreciated worldwide is a different level. Like I say, you've got Jazzwell, Mash, Skivo, all these guys that have got something about them. Yes, there may be some, let's say, a few guys are a bit wet behind the ears, a bit green, if you know what I mean, coming through, haven't quite got there yet, but wow, and anyway, it's just wow anyway. But with a few pointers and a bit of feedback, this is when people really can snap forward and get through it all on their own. Julian is a great example of that. He's a super talented person and very, very measured in the way he does stuff. So he doesn't do anything that doesn't mean anything. Again, Mash is the same, where I find that maybe those two guys have got something very special about them because of the way that they put themselves forward. They sit back and they wait, and their confidence comes through with that as well. So but yeah, I love it, absolutely love it out there. Dawson also, I absolutely love his music. I think he's excellent. China Chameleon, it's this, I hate this, the same over here. Some people are really, really great, some people are good, right? And this is the difference. You get it everywhere, but even the good people have got great in them. It's just trying to find it, and once they get a taste of the great, that's it, there's no turning back.
Man, that resonates
but
so
there's
much.
A heck of a lot of talent in South Africa.
And
but there's a heck of a lot of talent in South Africa.
I did want to ask you about South Africa, and besides the talent, as well as just generally about the passion of house music, and you've been here, when it was after Moment was released. What was your experience of of South Africa?
I've got a little bit of a history with the country even before I came there, because when I think I was 7, my sister moved to South Africa
Ah,
for 2 years. So it was the first really far away place that I connected with, because I used to talk to my sister, and she lived down just past Vaal, and yeah, it was crazy to calling someone from your home telephone, and then your sister's there, and you're like, wow, it's amazing, Jay. No, get off the telephone, it's going to cost a lot of money. Ooh. I can only speak to her once every 6 months or something. So I had that South Africa connection. Also, some friends of family had moved to South Africa and made a home there, made a life there, which is really nice. Then my ex-partner Sarah, her brother was doing his PhD in a place called Alice, which is, if I'm not, is it up from East London? It's like a township up from East London.
yes.
And he was studying the soil types, and why cattle weren't grazing and why cattle were grazing, and trying to figure out how we could make the soil, I was nothing to do with it. He was trying to figure out how to make the soil, I'm no doctor, how to make the soil work everywhere so that the cattle could graze more, and it would just be more fertile ground, if you know what I mean. So, and then he started to date Walter Princess, who came to stay. That was strange, having a princess in the house. But so I had my connections with it already, and then Sarah went to South Africa a few times, brought me gifts back and stuff. So when I was asked to go there, it didn't feel strange to go there, because I had stories of it, and I knew the dangers of it, absolutely. I mean, in fact, I live in a small town in the middle of England. There's still dangers here. But, South Africa is a big place. There's a lot more dangers. So I knew about the dangers there. I had no idea about, I expect if I play in a house club somewhere in the world, it will be fun and there'll be lots of people having a good time. I didn't expect what I saw when I got to South Africa. That was not like anywhere else on the planet. The enthusiasm to dance to house music at night was amazing. And maybe that's, repercussions of the freedom that people feel, in these times, rather than when they felt, 20 odd years ago when apartheid was still in. That freedom and that happiness, and people going absolutely nuts, scared. People being over happy is scary sometimes, because they're just on you, So
Yeah.
you've been in a crowd, but it's really intense. It's a really intense place to be, but at the same time, it's really beautiful. When I landed on the ground in South Africa, I didn't feel like I was away from home. I didn't feel that different, and it was really nice and warm, and the birds sounded different, and just thought to have some nice exotic food, not rather than fish and chips and curries. So it's. I don't know. I'm very fond of South Africa. Really, I'm fond of it. I love coming that side, but I won't come too often, because I think it's just a little bit. I don't want people to get bored of seeing me. I respect the country, and I respect the the rand is a broken currency, and it needs to repair and recover. And having international DJs coming and taking that away isn't going to help the country get back to normal. Whatever normal is these days. But I'll come and visit when I need to play my new music to people.
And I think
that's my idea.
If I could just say, with regards to you visiting SA, it's always short trips, man. Like, and I understand some of it. It's also financial issues, that you only get booked for a weekend or something like that. But I think I don't know, next year, whenever this whole madness ends of COVID-19, I would really love to see you doing a full-on tour of like 2 weeks, a week, probably 2 weeks, where we can fully see 2-3 weeks, you're traveling in Durban, Cape Town, and you're doing other deeper inland cities. I know DJ Nation brought you out. Was it last year to his party?
Yeah, I've been to Town twice now.
Yeah, super party, right? Super gig.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. But anyway, one thing about South Africa, I have to ask you, man. What team do you support? Soccer team, if any?
Yeah, don't go there. I'm going to upset somebody, aren't I?
Man, you have to.
I'm going to upset some.
I've got a
Do I just
picture.
say what football? Which football team do you support?
Well, you
That
have
one.
you have to say that because I've got a picture here. I'll show people. I don't know. I mean, you're using your phone for the interview, but there's a picture that I've just sent to you. A guy, I think it was at the airport, and you had just landed.
Oh no. It was in a mall.
It was in a mall. Yeah. And he
Yeah.
was wearing a Kaiser Chiefs jersey. If I could just
Yeah,
show.
no, I remember him. He
Yeah.
was shaking when he shook my hands.
Yeah. I mean, I would be shaking too.
He's got ATJAZZ on his back, right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah. I've got the picture.
Well, it's Kaiser Chiefs then, isn't it?
It is Kaiser
Kaiser
Chiefs.
Chiefs,
That's
there
the
you go.
team you support from now on. If anybody asks you, what team do you support in South Africa, my man, it's Kaiser Chiefs. Then we're done.
Okay. Well, you know what? I don't like football at all.
It's strange.
In England, I support Arsenal because if I didn't, Ross would disown me. What team do you support?
Kaiser Chiefs. So I would disown you too if you were
Well,
supporting
I
any
support
other
Kaiser Chiefs, or you'll disown me as well. And that guy will burn his shirt. So
Exactly.
I can't not support the Kaiser Chiefs.
Definitely. Now we're done.
Okay, that's it.
This
Kaiser
is the.
Chiefs it is then.
This
I
is
don't get
the-
myself a cut.
Every time you're in SA, yeah, Kosi for life. You know, you don't even have to say anything. Just then we know.
Just do that.
Just do that. For sure. Just in
Maybe I'll get
closing,
a
bro.
maybe they'll send me a free shirt.
Maybe they will. Maybe you will get the free shirt when you come for your 2 weeks tour. Just in closing, Martin, man, like I really would like to know, what does the future plans or what's in the pipeline for you?
Well, the label's very busy. I'll keep that short. There's a lot of albums coming out on the label. So PC's album's nearly completed, which is amazing. Clyde has almost completed his second album, which is amazing. Sai Chu has a new album coming through as well.
Nice.
Tomahawk Bang has got about 5 singles coming out with remixes by some really special people. Then I'm making a new album at the minute.
Thank God.
Which is nice. It's tough, but I'm doing it. But that's going to be a proper ATJAZZ album.
Is that including vocals and stuff? Because I did want to ask you about that. It's not an instrumental album.
No.
Great.
It's what I would, I don't consider, the albums I've done with Julian, my albums they're our albums.
Yes.
That's not an ATJAZZ album. It's a total combination. And the Mix 1 and Mix 2 albums, it is a project. But this is an album, so I'm making an album.
Amazing.
So I'm looking forward to getting my teeth into that. I've got some really cool people on board, really cool people. That's nice. Lots of big instruments, string sections and horns, etc. So there's a huge lift in kind of, well, it's been a long time, 16 years. So what I would have been writing the album, 14 years, it would have been 16 years ago, I was writing the last album, which was Full Circle.
Full Circle, yes.
So, it's been a long time coming. So that, I'm not traveling at all. I've kind of hung my DJ gloves up for the time being, for the safety of my family, for the safety of me, and the safety of everybody else, because, they don't want me running around a half-empty club drinking all their beer. That's just dangerous. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be traveling until summer next year, if I feel comfortable to do it. So it's just a matter of pedal to the metal in the studio and doing as much as I can to get the project. So I've got some music coming out with Ocean Lade. I have some more compilations, so working on Root Influence 3 at the minute, the compilation, so I'm getting a few exclusive songs for that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Got you, got you.
Uh, so that was meant to be a thought. And then I'm starting a new compilation series as well called it's based upon like raw house music from periods of 93 to 96 kind of sound, to bring a bit of the original house sound back into to the label. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than I can remember, to be honest. And there's two amazing albums. One I've already licensed in from JD73, Dan Goldman in England. So JD73 is one of the best, I think, is one of the best keyboard players on the planet. He's played lots of really big bands like Mochiba and Incognito, etc., and bigger, older acts as well. But he's made an amazing trio album, a jazz trio album. So that's coming out soon.
Nice.
I think it's going to be August when that hits. And then a couple of hip hop albums as well, which I'm looking forward to getting out there. And we've got Sir LSG's album that's currently being produced as well. So there's so much. So much stuff.
I'm looking forward to all of that, bro. But like before we go, I mean, like, it would be a crime to not ask you to please play me something. I really like there's a synth you kind of always play, not always, but like in the past you used to do it a lot, you know. I don't know if it was a Moog, but it was a lead kind of synth where you would do, yeah, something like that.
So it's basically if a workout. So let me turn you around a little bit. So this is, oh yeah, you know, Ralph has got one of these now. The Matriarch.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So if I mean, it's to be honest, it's probably a stolen idea. So, but it's a sawtooth sound. That kind of vibe. So let's have a look. That's another thing about analog synths. They're never in tune when you want them to be. That's the kind of vibe.
I love that so much. Yeah, man. Damn.
I wish I could play better, but
nah. I mean, like, we get it enough in your music, but I just want to say to you, bro, like, you've done so much for the scene. You know, the work that you've done, the releases, you know, the remixes that you've done so much. And sometimes as artists we may feel like, yes, it's our job, this is what I do, you know, you do it for ourselves, for our own fulfillment of the art. But definitely, like, for us, it's you giving us something so incredible. You know, the music that you've done has moved us, made us dance, and has been so inspirational. And I just want to say, for people like you, who've been literally giving their life to the music, I just want to say thank you, bro. Like, thank you so much.
It is my absolute pleasure, and it is my it's what I have to do. And if I may say, definitely to my South African friends and family and fans out there, thank you for being with me on this crazy, floaty, housey journey, because it's, without people, it's pointless me making the music in the first place. So we're a big team. So let's all stick together and continue to support the artists, and the artists to continually make music to support people's happiness at weekends. You know, where it's a big ecosystem. Fred Everything said to me once, and I will always remember that. So the feeling is mutual to everybody else. So,
bro, no, thank you, and thank you as well doing this with me, sharing your time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. It's nice to see you. I've not seen you for like 3 years or something. So
Yeah. Nice to see you too, bro. I'll definitely be sending you some stuff for that compilation, and we'll chat about it.
so you got the hint.
We did. But yeah, thank you so much. And to everybody who's watching, thank you for watching the video. Please comment in the share. I mean, tag somebody in the comment section who might learn, who might enjoy the conversation, and most importantly, please share the video so more people can see it, more people can learn from it. And please remember to stay creative. Peace out.
Yeah, if people want to drop messages and stuff, and I can drop in and answer questions as well. You know, that's some fun.
For sure. Let's do that. Let's stay creative, guys. Peace out. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for watching this, and thank you for your comments. Please continue to share the video and tag other people who might learn from it. And if you're watching from the ATJAZZ record company page or the ATJAZZ page, make sure to come to the Sir LSG page and like the page. We do this every morning. It's a daily show, Monday to Friday. And on tomorrow's show, I have CEO, the singer, songwriter, model, and. So I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, check you out tomorrow.